Ko Maraea Timutimu ahau, he uri o no Ngaitirangi, Ngātirangi Nui me Tūhoi. Kia ora. The title of my exhibition is called He Kāwai Whenua, He Kāwai Whakapapa. And the meaning behind the title is how our whenua and our whakapapa are connected and interwoven into each other. Whenua, in terms of the word whenua and its meaning, can be translated as whenua, land, ground, country, but whenua is also translated to mean placenta. Whakapapa can be used and is translated to mean your lineage, your genealogy, but I also use it in terms of expressing my connection to my taiao, so my environment, and my connection to people. Additionally, I use the term whakapapa to talk about how something's made. So when I refer to the whakapapa of my artwork or my mahi toi, I talk about everything that's happened prior, physically, how it's made, the people that I've spoken with, the things I've read, the things that have been part of the time prior to the final artwork being presented. I started collecting whenua on my travels around Maraea when I visited friends and when I went to a few beaches in Tauranga. And then last year, so in 2021, I finally created some whenua paint to create artwork with. And the reason around that was that part of one of the roles that I hold for our runanga of o Ngaitirangi is that I'm developing a Ngaitirangi iwi curriculum, and so part of that amazing mahi is speaking with our elders and talking about our stories and where those stories took place. So at the time I was speaking with Koro whakapapa, and one of the stories that he talked about was how Matakana or Panipani Point had gotten its name. After that interview, I went for a walk to the water and I collected 3 pieces of whenua. In that painting, I used that whenua at Matakana, collected on that day, and whenua from Maraea, which I collected in 2019. The third whenua paint was from Te Uri Wera, which is in terms of my tūhoi whakapapa, where one of the pakeke there had invited us to he offered us some whenua to use how we wanted as artists. So the work that was created included mauao and matakana whenua, and the movement of the work depicted or represented how Panipani got its name. And so that for me sparked this really huge it sparked a huge shift in not only my own art practice, but how we can use toi to really make really important connections with our uri, our descendants of Ngaitirangi, and especially for those that are not only here, but for those that don't live in Tauranga Moana, they don't live in their whenua that they whakapapa to. And so I've been experimenting with the whenua paint for a little while. I started thinking about sustainability practices and making sure that how I create my mahi, always thinking about like what you're taking away and how you can put something back or contribute back. Which is how I thought about and wanted to think about our whenua and using photography as a medium to think about whenua and our connections to place and the stories that they hold. And so that's where this body of work has come about, is through photography and how it can do the same thing, but also provides an opportunity for the whenua to be returned to where it came from. And so this body of work is, the first kind of, it's the first opportunity that I'll have to publicly share that. When given this opportunity to create a space or an experience at the Tauranga Art Gallery, I was like, oh, yep, these, photographs. But also to have the physical whenua there, because in the formalness of those photographs, and framed and looking so, as large as me, as tall as me, that kind of the humanistic element of it, but also that formalness of it is quite beautiful. And then kind of thinking about how having the whenua in that space would create more of an experience. That's kind of the overriding aim, is for the exhibition to provide an experience where you can kind of feel it, and you can see it, and you can potentially touch it, where all those senses are kind of touched upon to create an experience that talks about our connection to whenua and our connection to whakapapa, and how we create meaning and identity. The photographs themselves are self-portraits. They're portraits of me. And so thinking about how I see myself versus how others might see themselves through images of people. The idea of portraiture in our stories, in terms of Te Ao Māori and Mātauranga Māori, when we think about our creation stories of rangi and papa, of hine a huone, they all refer directly to whenua, and to our whenua and our sky. So this, in terms of what you're seeing, actually, it reinforces our connection to whenua. It connects to our stories, and it's a real interesting play. It's an interesting play on self-portraiture, and constructing it both from whenua collected from my father's side and my mother's side, and then creating those layers and how they appear. Actually, it makes sense to me. It really makes sense to me that these are self-portraits, because I recognize both my mother and my father in those places, and Matapihi and Ruatoki, and there's a whole plethora of whakapapa stories and whenua connected to that, this piece of whenua. What are the elements that create your identity is probably what I want viewers to take away. If this is how we create our our whakapapas through whenua, and this is what it looks like how do you create that same meaning for yourself, and how can you honor it, and how does it, what does it look like, and what does it feel like, and what does it sound like, and what does it, how can you feel one's identity through whenua and whakapapa?